Well, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody feeling? We're kind of in the, hi. We're kind of in the after lunch, sort of feeling maybe a little sleepy, but hopefully we can get rejuvenated for the afternoon. So my name is Caitlin Thomas, and I am with National Geographic Learning, based out of San Francisco, California. And I'd like to thank you all for, this is my third ABLA, but my very first where people are coming here to the United States. So it's kind of a nice treat for me not to travel, though I do love to travel to places like Brazil and the Dominican Republic. I'm always okay with that too. So it's a win-win situation. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about what National Geographic Learning can do for your learners. And I'd like to start off with our mission. Who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And it comes down to some very simple points. The first is we want to help you create global citizens. What does it mean to be a global citizen? It's the afternoon. Let's talk. Let's chat. Even though I'm up here because I'm going to be doing some manipulating with my computer, but what does it mean to be a global citizen? What do you think? Yell something out. What's happening around the world? So keeping updated with news, information, events, absolutely. What else? Culture. And not just, as in National Geographic, we talk a lot about not just an understanding of other cultures, but an appreciation of other cultures. What does that have to do with English? Language, absolutely. Yep, so the ability of communication, right? Fostering solid communication. So what we want to do, if anybody was in my talk yesterday, we talked a little bit about 21st century skill development and what that means to develop the skills necessary for success as a 21st century learner. Things like thinking critically, the ability to understand information from many different sources, right? Things like that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we do this through motivating learners. We want learners to have ideas that they want to share, that they're excited to share, and you can help them do that in English. That's what we're all about. So what I'm going to do for you today is take you kind of behind the scenes. All right? I think a lot of times you guys are on the other end of receiving products, receiving materials from publishers. They kind of show up at your doorstep, and here they are. What I would like to do for you this afternoon is to take you behind the scenes of what it is that we do at National Geographic Learning that we hope can benefit your learners. So let's take a step back, and I'm going to bring you into Boston, Massachusetts, where our mothership, our home office is, and we started off with one simple question. It's a really easy question because what it is a question that we heard our teachers struggling with, our educators, administrators struggling with. How can we help you maximize class time? How can we help you make the most of the precious time that you have with your learners, or that your educators have with your learners? We heard things like, well, my students never come prepared to class. I assign something for homework, and then I end up having to reteach that assignment when I get to class so that I lose 15 minutes in the beginning of class because I'm reteaching things. Or, oh, I don't know, my student forgot his book, and so they weren't able to do this lesson. Or I found out the next day that 50% of my students didn't understand the lesson, and they didn't realize it, or I didn't realize it until they got home, tried to do their homework, and stopped because they just couldn't do it. Have people heard this from their educators? Is this something that you as teachers, or that you've interacted with your teachers, is this something that you're hearing? Yeah? Okay. So it's a pretty easy question, but it's complex. How do we deal with this? So what we did is we worked with teachers from around the world, and actually one of them's in the room right now. He may or may not know it that I'm about to call him out, but Tony's in the room. Say, hey, Tony. You don't know that I'm actually about to talk about you, but I am. Tony was one of the teachers that we worked with, and what we did is fly Tony and some of his colleagues to Boston, and not only did we talk to some educators from Peru, we talked with people around the world because we were struggling with this very question. How can we make this better for you? And what we came up with from working with teachers from Peru, working with teachers from Japan, working with teachers from the Middle East, we aggregated this and we came down with some very simple lessons. And I think you're pretty much not going to be surprised by any of these, but we came up with these kind of ideas that resonated. Pretty simple stuff. When students complete independent work, they're more successful. Well, no kidding. But this was an absolutely unanimous piece of information. Teachers want to increase meaningful communication in the classroom. They want to do it. Yeah, that's pretty universal. I have never encountered an educator who did not want this. Students are engaged with independent learning when they are given choices, when they feel like they have some bit of control, right? This is no surprise. My husband would probably agree with that I like to have control of things. Yeah, that might be true. Might be true, but I think it's true for teachers and learners as well. When you feel that you're in control of what's going on, you're more engaged, right? Students are motivated to work independently when they understand why or how the lessons will help them meet their goals. How many times have you had a learner say, teacher, why do I have to do this? If they're asking that question, it's too late. It's too late. You haven't engaged them. You haven't given them. I'm not saying that if that's happened, you're terrible teachers. That's not it. It's how can we shift that so that they see it immediately? This is going to help me be successful tomorrow. Learners should receive meaningful feedback during their independent learning. Now, I'm not talking about little things popping up and going, woohoo, you're doing great, all that. No, I'm talking about you need more work on this, or this is great, but how about you get more work in this, right? Some sort of direction, some sort of prescription for success. And you know what, guys? It's got to be in one place. It's the 21st century. We're not going to more than one place for our teaching and learning materials. It has to be one-stop shopping. That is the nature of reality, of where we are in the 21st century. We can't be going to 1,001 different places. So knowing all this stuff, do you guys pretty much agree with that? I mean, this is the time. If you don't agree, that's okay. I'm tough. I can take it. Was there anything up here that you feel, it's kind of right, but maybe with just a small tweak? It's a good time to share. Do people mostly agree with this stuff? Yeah? Okay. So knowing all this, what do we do now, right? Okay, so we got all this information. We've gathered it. What next? Looking at all of this, I don't think that technology is always the answer for everything. I don't think so. I feel very strongly in the printed book. I feel very strongly in the use of video. I feel very strongly in the power of the educator himself or herself. But every once in a while, a situation presents itself that can only be solved with technology. And looking at all of these pieces, we realized that given these set of criteria, technology was the solution for this particular need. So we went back and we thought, how do we make something that prepares the learner with lessons which are meaningful and relevant to them? Well, guess what? It's got to be personalized. It's got to be personalized. It's got to be tailor-made for them. How do we create something that's motivating but not frustrating? Not, if you get home, and I remember this, if anything to do with math, I hate to say it, I am one of those, it's a stereotype and I don't like to, kind of subscribe to it, but I hate math. It actually physically makes me sweat. It would make me sweat as a learner. I would take tests and shake. I just disliked it. So how could I, back in high school or really anytime through my education, if I had something that could motivate me, that could keep me going in the independent environment, that wasn't frustrating, that made me feel like I was making progress, maybe that would have helped. I don't know. I could have used a lot of help, but maybe that could have helped. Well, it's got to have some sort of reteaching or instruction, because if you get to that point and you're alone, right? You're independent and you realize you don't know what the heck is going on, you need some sort of piece that's going to reteach you the lesson that you did not get in class. And you can be the best educator in the world, but you're not going to reach every single person 100% of the time. We know that. It's got to be easy, right? It's got to be easy to use. If it's not easy to use, if it's not intuitive at this point, it's not going to work. So again, everything's got to be in one place. All of these things. So this is kind of what we aggregated. We took that long laundry list of stuff and boiled it down to this. And we thought if we can do something that meets this, we're going to be in pretty good shape. So I want to show you what we came up with. We got one more. It's got to be engaging. It's got to be interesting, right? Again, in the independent environment, we know from anybody who has done independent learning, blended learning, flipped learning, any of that stuff, if you don't have something which is interesting and engaging and motivating, learners are not going to keep going in that environment. We know that. That's easy. So again, we can look at this stuff and create, well, the first thing we created was My World Link Online. And this is the prototype for which we are building our independent technology solutions. This is the first look at how we are approaching independent electronic or online learning. Our materials going forward will be built around the work that we've done with institutions like ICNA, with institutions from Japan, from the Middle East, with teachers from around the world. This is the standard by which we're going to translate these types of materials. And what it does, very, very simply, one sentence, it's going to prepare your learners for meaningful communication. That's it. Pretty easy. So let's take a look at how it works. It has to be personalized, right? We talked about that. So how can an online tool be personalized? Well, guess what? Everything's personalized. If we threw everybody's iPhones in the middle of the room right now, you're going to see different apps that reflect bits of our personalities, right? We have technology that we personalize continuously. Why shouldn't our learning tools do the very same thing? The way every single learner starts out is a one-time diagnostic test. In a friendlier term, we call it the starter quiz. It's a one-time solution for the first-time solution. So learners get on and they are assessed in reading, listening, and speaking, giving them kind of a test, testing the waters, okay? And from that test, they get a score that is broken down by reading, listening, and speaking, okay? And based on the results of these scores, it starts to personalize the learner's path, okay? And as you can see here, based on results, your personalized learning path is ready. Let's get started. The cool thing about this is that one of the pieces of independent learning that is difficult for learners to deal with is a lot of activities, right? Learners sign on to something and they're overwhelmed. right? They said, oh my goodness, we have a lot of things to do. There's a lot of information here. But we are put directly into the path of learning here. Let me show you how this works. I'm going to go into the live environment, and I'm going to show you how we integrate instructional elements along with practice activities that adapt to unique learner needs. So let's take a look. I want you to take a look at the fact here that this says vocabulary 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we were to go into a practice activity, what's your name? Let's do this together. It's Liling. How do you spell that? There it is. I'm going to do well on this on purpose here. Are you a teacher? No, I'm a student. What's your email address? Here it is. Let's see. Is she a student? Let's see here. Get in here. And we submit. Now oh, I did very well. I'm kind of a mastermind here. The thing that I want to show you here is if anybody noticed anything interesting that happened to our learning path, what wonderful set of eyes do we have? What happened? The first point's achieved, so the circle has been filled in. That's correct. What other? There is a plus sign now next to vocabulary practice 3 and 4. Since I did well on that activity, this SMART learning path has assessed this student's ability, in this case mine, and said, what a wonderful student we have here. This student requires a little bit of a challenge. So we're going to give this student some above-level challenge activities, okay? So it's a nice way for the system to detect not only learner deficiencies, but also places where learners are doing well and giving them those activities. We know as teachers you're busy. You can't possibly get the temperature of 45 students in a class times that by 3. You can't know every single piece of that puzzle. So having smart technology that does that for you is really helpful. Now, as every single teacher in this room is thinking, what about those students who are doing poorly? Even more important. Well, let's come down to grammar. Let's do really, really poorly on grammar. Let's do pretty bad. First thing I want you to see is that every single grammar activity includes a grammar learn section, because we know that a tutorial for grammar, no matter how good you are.
Present tense of be.
Yowza, that's loud. No matter how good you are, every single student can use a little refresher in grammar. So there's instructional elements built right in to the path. So now look at the practice activities after the fact. We're going to do bad. Let's see. You're my English book. No, you're not. It's actually kind of hard to do poorly on this, but we'll do our best. We'll do our best. It's a student. Yeah, oh yeah, we did pretty badly on that. Good, good, good. So what you'll notice here is that because I was so bad in grammar, that review has been magically added into my path of learning without doing anything, without selecting anything. Because I did poorly, it just automatically, magically appeared, that review section. So what we're doing here is not only assessing weaknesses, we're assessing places where students can use a challenge and giving them the opportunity to succeed in that way. Does that make sense? So we also integrate this idea of choice. Remember I said how important it is for learners to have choices in their independent environment? If I click over here to view all activities, learners do have the opportunity to move through all of the material that's available to them. So if they did, even though if they did well on that vocabulary activity, but they wanted to do a review simply because they have a test tomorrow and they want to make sure they really ace it, they can do that, okay? They can do that review, and the coolest part about it is their teachers will see that review. They'll get credit for it. Even though it wasn't part of their learning path, their prescribed learning, their teachers will still see that they did it, okay? So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for teachers and learners to be able to move through this system. So one of the items we talked about is this motivational element too, right? So yeah, this is great. It's personalized. It's tailored to them. But how do we keep learners motivated? Well, one of the ways we think is by this element of personalization, but also how about some cool stuff? We're National Geographic. We got to be able to have some cool video in there as well. So we use authentic clips from National Geographic, from YouTube, from Lonely Planet as instructional elements within that path of learning. So every time you see a video, students are getting these little clips. They also provide examples of authentic language. Learners have to be able to hear authentic language to boost the confidence they need in real-world situations. So we know that and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about speech recognition technology, but it's really hard in the independent environment to practice communicative skills. We know that. So incorporating elements of authentic language through video with visuals is one way we can do that. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at, this is just a very quick example of some of the authentic language video clips that you will find embedded into this program. And I'm going to just turn this down just a little bit, because that was a little scary the last time.
Välkommen till Stockholm. Hi, I'm Dina, and this is my city.
Hey guys, this is Spider-Man in real life. We're going to recreate Spider-Man here in New York City. We're on top of a 20-story building right now. We worked together with some friends and built this awesome rig up here on the roof, and we're going to hook our friend Richie into it and fly him down. No one has any idea what's about to happen.
Help me, Spider-Man!
This is Brooklyn Grange. It's a 40,000 square foot rooftop farm. It's about an acre. And we're growing probably 50, 60, 70 different varieties of vegetables.
Ben Flanner and 4 friends are running a commercial farm here, 7 stories off the ground, surrounded by a to-die-for view of the New York skyline.
According to Fraser's study, the most important habits for adding years to your life are as simple as eating a handful of nuts every day and exercising. Dr. Warren talks about his daily exercise regimen.
Now, about 20 years ago, out of Stanford, there came a paper, and this paper said if you climbed a flight of stairs 20 times a week, now that's only 3 times a day. You get me? It's pretty hard to live in a 2-story house and not climb a flight of stairs.
So what we've done there is incorporate little bits of authentic video into into each of the learning path elements to keep learners interested and engaged in that independent environment, in addition to the grammar learn piece. So let's go back to that idea of communication. How are we going to take the authentic language and build some communicative activities around it? This smart technology also incorporates speech recognition technology so that learners speak in and record using a headset, record their voices, and will actually be able to record and play back their responses, and the technology recognizes correct and incorrect responses. Not necessarily around pronunciation, but around the ability to hear a prompt and answer with the appropriate response to that prompt, and that technology will recognize that. Again, this is around building confidence and preparing them to come to your class ready to talk, ready to put the grammar into use, ready to put the vocabulary into use, and all of the skills that you've taught. Last but not least, we've built in a fail-safe for them. We've built in unit tests that not only assess the unit, of course, they assess all of the skills that were taught in the unit, but even more importantly than this piece is this more help section at the bottom. Clicking on more help, this smart test, before you move on to the second unit, it says, whoa, 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 you're not quite ready. What you need to do is actually review these pieces of grammar and vocabulary. It's building their own personalized roadmap for success. So much of the time as teachers in the class, we have to keep on a schedule, right? We have to keep things moving. In the independent environment, this is the luxury place where you get to really tap into unique needs and get at some additional information for each learner. Now, I'm going to also show you very quickly in the live environment where we also meet the need of the one-stop location. Remember, we said that we're not asking learners to go to a million different places. In this one-stop location, learners also have access to their grade book, which, oh yes, you as educators do as well. You'll be able to see how many times a learner has accessed each activity, how long they spent in each activity, their percentage right or wrong. So you get all that information, and the learners get that information as well. Learners will also have complete access to their ebook, okay? Their ebook is something that they will have, again, thinking back to that example that I gave at the beginning of class. Oh, teacher, I forgot my book. No, no, no. The book's built in there. You can still do your lessons. You can still do your homework. And, of course, every single piece of resource, all of the video, even though the video is chunked and built right in to the learning path, they also can have access easily to every single video. Last but not least, let me go back to our learning path. Following up on this idea of the ebook, the last thing I want to show you is the fact that it is imperative to be able to, especially for me, especially for those visual learners, when you're doing your homework, it's great to have brand new grammar tutorials, it's great to have all of these items, but do you ever, I remember as a learner, I wanted to see where we were in the book when we learned it, and it sort of like jogged your memory a little bit. So if you go back to the View All Activities and you're doing a grammar activity and you want to see exactly where that grammar activity was taught in the book, we've chunked that out. We've pulled out that piece of the book so that as students are grooving through their learning path, they can just click on the ebook and see that page where you taught it to them in class. So it's a nice, again, this sort of stream of consciousness is really what we're going for, not moving all over the place, right in the path of learning. Okay? Again, I just want to end with, because I'm trying to keep us on track. I know everybody has a lot of other things to do. For your teachers, the path does all of the work for you. Again, you don't have to do anything in terms of assignments. You can always opt to create your own assignments into the learning path. If you're an instructor who has, I want every single student to do X, Y, and Z, you can make those assignments and create them right in their learning path, and they will see those as assignments from my teacher. Okay? So with My World Link Online, your learners will come to class ready to talk. They'll be provided with personalized instruction and practice, and they're going to have a one-stop location for everything they need. And through their personalized learning path, their ebook, tutorials, speech recognition technology, and all of the audio and video. That is right at 4:15, folks. I don't know what else I can do for you there. That's right on the nose. Do you have any questions for me? Does this look like something that could benefit your teacher, or your teachers and learners, yeah? Well, I'd like to point out the National Geographic Learning representatives that we have in the room. We have Karina in the front, we have Laura in the middle, and I think Jair is in the back. And they will be here for the rest of the conference at the National Geographic Learning booth. If you have any more questions, want to see a demonstration, or are interested in other products that offer a similar type of solution, please talk to our team and we'd be more than happy to address those questions. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.